Have you or someone close to you been diagnosed with a hernia? Yeah, it's one of the more common diagnoses out there for a lot of gentlemen actually. And so if you're a gentleman, this video is definitely for you. Come closer, let's learn a thing or two about hernias, how we can prevent them, and if you do have it, what you need to do about it. This is definitely a relevant video. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you share this information with your friends and family and anybody else who might be interested in hernias so that we can learn and grow this channel together. All right, so what are hernias? When you use the term hernia loosely, it refers to abdominal organs that have moved beyond their boundaries through a weakness in the muscles that surround those organs. And so we have different kinds of hernias, from hiatal hernias to umbilical hernias to incisional hernias, and to the most common one for gentlemen, for men, which is the inguinal hernia. And so for the purpose of this video, we are going to focus a lot on inguinal hernia. Of course, there are hernias in other parts of the body, like the brain, which is dangerous. So we don't want to have a brain herniation. But for this video, we're only talking about the abdominal. We're talking about the inguinal hernia. Did you know that your testes develops in the abdomen? Well, yes, it does. It begins developing in the abdomen, and by the 3rd month of life, it moves into the scrotum through the inguinal canal. Now, this path of movement creates a point of weakness in the abdomen of all men, such that over time, every man could potentially develop a hernia through the path through which the testes traveled going into the scrotum. It is for this reason why almost all inguinal hernias will eventually arrive in the scrotum if you don't do anything about it, because the path is already there. There's a potential space, and so with enough pressure, with enough force, and with enough inattention, it will eventually get into the scrotum and could actually end you up in the emergency room, which we don't want to happen. And that's why I'm doing this video. So make sure that you take the extra information here very seriously. If you do have a hernia, deal with it as soon as possible. So how would you know you have a hernia? The classic sign of a hernia is a swelling in the groin, which gets bigger when you stand up or gets bigger when you strain. When you try to lift something, it gets bigger, it bulges out some more. When you cough, it bulges out some more. In fact, any action that requires you to strain will cause the bulge to enlarge. And in the early days, when you actually lie down flat, the bulge completely disappears. It kind of goes back into the abdomen. So that is the classic presentation of a hernia. So if you have a swelling in your groin, which gets bigger when you stand or when you strain, but resolves when you lie down, it's most likely a hernia and you need to get it looked at. Now, over time, as it gets bigger, it will get to a point where when you lie down flat, it doesn't even go back inside. It becomes a permanent fixture in your groin. Now, if all men are at risk of hernia, how come some men do develop hernia and most men will not develop a hernia? The reason is very simple. Your predisposition to a hernia is as a result of how much straining you put your abdominal muscles through. And so if your line of work requires a lot of heavy lifting, or you are a bodybuilder, or you have a challenge with constipation, chronic constipation, either from a medical condition or from poor fiber content in your diet, if you have a chronic cough condition, or if as you grow older you develop a prostate enlargement which affects your urine and you have to strain to urinate, all these put you at risk of developing a hernia. So any situation that causes you to strain or causes you to engage your intra-abdominal or causes you to engage your abdominal muscles will predispose you to developing a hernia. Those people or men who lift weights or work in industries which requires them to lift heavy weights without a proper gear are at significantly higher risk of developing a hernia. And so you must ensure that you are using the appropriate gear to reduce the risk of developing a hernia. Very important. So you already have a hernia. What should you do? Well, if you already do have a hernia, you need to go in for a proper evaluation and a repair of the hernia. But the repair of the hernia will only be done if we are sure that the predisposition or the predisposing factor has been dealt with. So for instance, if you are an older gentleman who happens to have a prostate enlargement, we will not repair the hernia until the prostate enlargement has been dealt with. Because if you repair the hernia and the prostate enlargement is still the problem, the hernia will recur because the cause of the increase in abdominal pressure is still there. So we must help you resolve that challenge first before we deal with the hernia. So if you work in an industry which requires heavy lifting, you either have to find a new industry to work in, or you need to wear the appropriate gear to prevent the redevelopment of the hernia. Very important. Secondly, we need to be sure that after the hernia repair, you are not going to engage in any such heavy lifting for between 6 weeks to 6 months, depending on which method of repair you were put through. So it's important that counseling is done appropriately before hernia surgery is done. Otherwise, there will be a recurrence. So if this video has been beneficial to you, remember to leave me a like and subscribe to my channel and share with your friends and family as well, as we continue to build this health and wellness channel to ensure that everybody lives a much healthier, happier life. Have a fabulous time. I'm Dr. Kelvin, your wellness consultant.